The furry community means a lot of different things to various people. To some people, it's a way of expressing themselves, sometimes in adult ways, and other times it's just a way of designing a fictional character and sort of living in a bit of a mascot costume for a while. To me, being part of this community really means designing my own characters, as well as embodying them in the form of either commissioning art, or in some extreme cases, commissioning fursuits.
Hey everybody, good to have you back here with me. Today we are looking at a guy named Raymond Zhang, a software engineer at one of the biggest tech companies in the world, living in the San Francisco Bay Area, on a salary most people would consider life-changing. And then he opens his front door, and the apartment does not match the paycheck at all. Not even close. There is a filing cabinet where a nightstand should be, there is no car in the driveway, and buried in the middle of all of it is one hobby he is quietly saving thousands of dollars for that I promise you will not see coming. Stick around, because this one gets stranger the further in you go, and the piece that ties the whole thing together does not show up until the back half. Also, before we get into it, I always love seeing where everybody is tuning in from, so drop your city or your country down in the comments and let me know. All right, let us get into it.
What do you do for fun in your free time?
That's an excellent question. In terms of what I do in my free time, there are really three major areas that I spend my money on. The first is finances, so really a lot about the credit cards and churning and that sort of thing, as well as my personal finances. There's also a big aspect of travel, whether that's domestic or international, and I am also an active participant in the furry community. I currently spend about $1,000 a year just for the privilege of owning the credit cards that I currently hold on to. In terms of my hobbies, I generally spend between $400 and $500 a month across all of them, though in certain cases I will spend a little bit more money, and I'm currently saving up for a fursuit. On average, depending on where your maker is, as well as how reputable they are, a fursuit will generally cost between $4,000 to $7,000. The furry community means a lot of different things to various people. To some people, it's a way of expressing themselves, sometimes in adult ways, and other times it's just a way of designing a fictional character and sort of living in a bit of a mascot costume for a while. To me, being part of this community really means designing my own characters, as well as embodying them in the form of either commissioning art, or in some extreme cases, commissioning fursuits. And all of this faux fur, or at least part of it, will eventually end up on the head. This is a bigger part of the project, especially since I'm not super familiar with sewing, but it'll eventually end up on there. So my character currently is a bit of a cyborg hybrid between a canine as well as a robot, known in the community colloquially as a protogen. I think for really anything mentioning furry in the furry community as well, because of it being a sort of historically marginalized community in the social space, there are a lot of concerns around doxing, as well as in general people not necessarily being super comfortable with being public with this. I just happen to be one of the stupid people that decided to go public with this. I don't really spend a lot of money on improving my finances. It's more so of a lifestyle choice to take a look at credit cards and the perks that they offer and whether or not it's really worth it to me. In terms of maximizing your value for the points, this is really a process of trying to earn those points in the most efficient way and spending those points in the most efficient way. Generally, in terms of earning, you're going to be getting those from sign-up bonuses rather than everyday spend. And in terms of actually cashing in those points, you're going to be trying to look for value where, say, maybe a business class ticket might be $5,000, but only $2,500 worth of points. I was fortunate enough to grow up in a household where my mother was very financially literate, and she was actually the one that got me interested in credit cards and churning in the first place. The most recent trip that I did was to Southeast Asia, so Singapore as well as Malaysia. I was fortunate enough to bring my dad along as well as my sister. I have health insurance provided by my employer. I am currently paying for a high deductible plan, and I spend about $17 per month. I currently do not have any recurring healthcare costs. In terms of staying fit, my apartment has a gym, but in case I'm lazy to do that, I also do bodyweight fitness, and for cardio and aerobics, I do dance. One of the big parts about the furry conventions as well are the raves that happen in person.
This right here is where the whole video flips on you. For 7 minutes, you are watching a careful, almost clinical software engineer talk about rent and grocery receipts, and then Raymond said this, "And I am also an active participant in the furry community. No build-up, no apology." He lists it third, right after credit cards and travel, like it is one more line on a budget. And here is what most people never notice. He did not frame it as a confession. He framed it as an allocation. Then he gave the number, because Raymond said this: on average, depending on where your maker is, as well as how reputable they are, a fursuit will generally cost between $4,000 to $7,000. Let me break down why that matters. That price is not a markup and it is not a ripoff. These suits are built by hand, one at a time, by makers with wait lists that run into years. Fur gets cut and sewn, foam heads get sculpted, fans and screens get wired in. So when Raymond mentions he is not great at sewing and is still working on the head himself, that tells you this is a craft hobby, not a purchase. He designs a character, then pays an artist to build it. People spend that on a road bike or a camera lens, and nobody says a word. The part that actually stayed with me, though, is when Raymond said this. I just happened to be one of the stupid people that decided to go public with this. He is joking. He is also completely correct about the risk, and he sat down and did it anyway with his salary on the screen next to him. That takes more nerve than anything else in this video. And then, without changing his tone at all, Raymond said this: I am currently paying for a high deductible plan, and I spend about $17 per month. $17. Hold on to that number, because it is about to explain a lot.
In any given month, I will save anywhere between $5,000 to $20,000. In terms of that large range, it really depends on whether or not my 401k is maxed out, whether or not I have any stock vesting, and whether or not I have any bonuses. In terms of matching out my 401k with my employer, I contribute $24,500 up to the maximum limit that I can contribute alongside my employer contributions. In addition to that, I make after-tax contributions all the way up to the IRS limit of $72,000. So in total, about 1/6 of my compensation is going towards my 401k. In terms of my other investments, I also max out my Roth IRA and HSA every single year, and then any additional money goes into my brokerage account. I'm currently about 80% invested in the US stock market and 20% internationally. I think like with many other parts of my generation, there is very much a big split in terms of financial literacy among other things. There's a swath of people who are fairly well educated in terms of personal finances, and there are a lot of those who are just getting by. I view personal finance in a very similar way as I do personal fitness. A lot of the core concepts are fairly simple, but it doesn't mean that it's easy to follow, and there are a lot of traps along the way. I'm aiming to retire by the age of 30, in which case I'll need about $1.6 million to do so. In terms of why I decided to start pursuing the path of financial independence and retiring early, I wanted to build a life for myself where I wouldn't have to work for money all the way up until 65. There's a lot of moving parts when it comes to retirement planning, and even establishing a goal number is a bit of a moving goalpost in general. The rule of thumb in the community is to multiply your expenses by 25, or otherwise known as the 4% rule. And if you're retiring earlier than, say, around 40 or so, you might want to add some leeway to that. And so my budget is a little bit greater than the actual 4% rule. There's a lot of different projections in terms of how much I'm going to be contributing in the future, as well as how the stock market is going to do over that course of time. I have way too many sheets in this. So every month I'll create a copy of this sort of base spreadsheet. I designed it myself. I don't really have a template that I follow, and I prefer it this way. It's more of a DIY approach of if I decide that there are certain categories that I don't want or categories that I do need, then I'll just add it onto the spreadsheet and it'll be copied over for the remainder of however long I decide to do this budgeting. I actually do have a larger tax sheet that does track down in terms of like taxes that I'm paying, in terms of the income that I'm getting, the expected amount of paychecks. And then over here, I just have some pretty straightforward projections in terms of actually where I'm going to be at financially for a given year and age, assuming certain figures for growth as well as investment outcome. And yeah, so by age 30, assuming that all goes well, I'm expecting that I might have somewhere north of around $2 million invested. And this is also tracking the active price of some of my investments, and so this will fluctuate over time. And by age 40, I'm expected to be retired at that point, so I do have empty columns in terms of my actual investments. But at that point, I might have somewhere in the north of $7 million invested.
Okay, so remember what he told us at the very top about his take-home pay? Then Raymond said this: in any given month, I will save anywhere between $5,000 to $20,000. That is the reveal. The take-home number was never his real income. It was whatever survived after he had already fired most of the paycheck into accounts he cannot touch for decades. You have to understand how deliberate that is. Raymond said this: so in total, about 1/6 of my compensation is going towards my 401k. Most people treat retirement as whatever happens to be left over at the end of the month. He treats it as a bill that gets paid before he ever sees the money. The small take-home is the proof that the system is working, not a sign that he is scraping by. Then he tells you where all of it is pointed, because Raymond said this: I'm aiming to retire by the age of 30, in which case I'll need about $1.6 million to do so. Here is the background almost nobody gives you on that. The math he is leaning on comes out of a study published in 1998 by 3 finance professors at Trinity University, who ran decades of market history to work out how much a retiree could pull out each year without running the account dry. The answer landed near 4%, which is exactly where multiplying your yearly expenses by 25 comes from. But that study was built for people retiring in their 60s, over a window of about 30 years. He is asking it to hold for 60 or more. He clearly knows that, which is why he says his own budget runs above it. And the spreadsheet he built himself, with no template, copied fresh every single month, is the part I respect most. Because Raymond said this: but at that point, I might have somewhere in the north of $7 million invested. That is not a number pulled out of the air to impress you. It is sitting on top of contributions he is already making today.
I think a very interesting part of the FIRE community is that it has splintered off into various groups and evolved from its original form around the 2010s that was largely focused on frugality at all costs. Now there are folks such as myself that sort of can have their cake and eat it too, where we are able to live a very fulfilling lifestyle and save a lot for retirement. In terms of my lifestyle after retirement, I don't expect that I'm going to stop working entirely. I might pick up some odd jobs or contracting work every now and then, just if I decide that it's interesting to me. Other than that, it's really going to be populated with travel as well as attending conventions and just being myself. I think one of the biggest privileges for myself is that I am able to earn enough of an income where I could reasonably support my family if they were ever in trouble, and in the case of a future family, that would be something that I would have to readjust over time. Moving here has definitely been worth it. Even though the cost of living is higher, the job compensation and the opportunities available here are really unmatched. In terms of staying here long term, that's an existential question. I think in terms of long-term living, I plan to move back to the Los Angeles area. I could definitely see myself in the position of starting a company in the next couple of years or decades, but no plans for that currently. My biggest piece of advice is something that's fairly widely shared among the folks in the FIRE community, and it's build the life you want and then save for it. There may be a situation where you can't have everything all at once now, and you just kind of have to pick and choose whether or not you want to live in a favorable location, or you decide to spend more on, say, travel and other experiences, or maybe on some of the other material goods that you're looking at.
Oh man, I'm gonna get roasted by so many people. It's gonna be the people who are gonna comment on my forum, the people who are gonna comment on the furry thing, the people that are gonna comment on my apartment.
Here is what makes this different from every other early retirement video on this platform. Raymond said this: now there are folks such as myself that sort of can have their cake and eat it too, where we are able to live a very fulfilling lifestyle and save a lot for retirement. I want to push back on that a little and also agree with it. The older version of this movement treated deprivation as a personality. Cut everything, feel nothing, get out early. What he is describing is a different animal. He is not spending less on everything. He is spending almost nothing on the things he does not care about, so he can spend real money on the 2 or 3 things he does. A bare bedroom and a fursuit fund in the same apartment is not a contradiction. That is a person who has actually sat down and worked out what he likes. Then comes the line that quietly takes apart the whole retire at 30 framing, because Raymond said this: I don't expect that I'm going to stop working entirely, which tells you stopping was never the point. The point was making work optional. Those are 2 completely different goals. And I promise you, half the comment section is going to argue about the first one without ever noticing he said the second. But the moment that actually landed for me is this one. Raymond said this: "I think one of the biggest privileges for myself is that I am able to earn enough of an income where I could reasonably support my family if they were ever in trouble." That is not a flex. That is somebody describing the real reason a person builds a cushion in the first place, and it has nothing to do with quitting a job at 30. He took his dad and his sister on that trip. He credits his mother for teaching him this stuff to begin with. The whole thing points outward, at people who are not him. So when Raymond said this, build the life you want and then save for it, he has already shown you what that looks like in practice. He picked the apartment for the train line. He picked the neighborhood for the groceries. He built the budget around the hobby instead of squeezing the hobby into the budget. The life came first, and the math came second, and that order is the entire lesson. And then he closes by predicting exactly which parts of himself strangers are going to go after, which might be the most self-aware thing anyone has said in front of a camera like this. So what do you guys think of this? Leave your thoughts down in the comments. Please like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.